I think we have to approach the tithe from a biblical theology perspective. The whole Bible is the Word of God, but there is an important distinction between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, the law of Moses and the law of Christ. The Israelites in the Old Testament were under the law of Moses. No question, the tithe was required. But we are under the law of Christ, and the tithe is virtually absent from the New Covenant. In fact, in the epistles, the handbook of the early church, tithing is only mentioned in Hebrews 7:5, which is a reference to Melchizedek tithing in the Old Testament. Aside from that, there is no mention of the tithe in the epistles to the church. If tithing were a mandate, I don't understand why Paul would say what he does in 1 Corinthians 16, where he is giving instructions about the believer's giving. He says in verse 2, "On the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with his income." Why didn't he just say set aside a tithe? But he doesn't. He says set aside a sum of money. I think it's true, however, that while the New Testament believer is not under the tithe, he has an even higher standard of giving than the tithe. All through the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus raised the standards. He said, "You've heard it said, but I say to you," and he raised the standard. And when we look at 1 Corinthians 16, 2 Corinthians 8, many other passages in the New Testament, we find a standard for giving that is beyond the tithe. Giving is to be regular on the first day of the week. It's to be proportionate as God has prospered you or in keeping with your income. It's to be joyful. 2 Corinthians 8 requires that. It's to be generous, also in 2 Corinthians 8. And I think it should be sacrificial. The Macedonians are given to us as our example of giving, and they gave beyond their ability. To accept the tithe as the standard for giving is probably to set the standard too low. With our blessings and our income that God has given us, I think we should go beyond that and in our generosity and in our sacrificial giving.